Del 1900.
On the 1st of May 1908 in Fontanelle di Roccabianca, an area of the low countryside of the town of Parma, in one of the houses facing the square, a baby girl was born who was called Ermenilda. That was not me. I was born in that country in 1908, but actually in a house on the other side of the square. And as a matter of fact, I was then named Giovannino. The first son that my eyes would see was the first son of 1908, and it was a political son. And as a matter of fact, politics was very much in my cradle, because the 1st of May is actually the day in which the Communist Party is celebrated in that area. So in that sunny day, on that sunny day, in the areas, in the streets of that small town, the high notes of the workers' hymn would be heard.
Perché quando
So why is it that when I hear the notes of the workers' hymn, I feel a deep nostalgia? Perhaps because they were the first music my ears heard after the sweetest of my mother's words.
adesso
And now I'll tell you about myself. I was born in Fontanelle, a village scattered among the alfalfa of the Parma lowlands. My mother was a school teacher. She taught for 49 years, while my father worked with agricultural machinery. When I was 6 years old, we moved to the Stantalian city of Parma, but I must confess, I did not realize it was a Stantalian city. And here I attended the 3 classes of the Lyceum as an external student at a the total cost of 2 lira a day. A lira of coffee and a loaf of 1 lira bread were my midday meal. Having passed brilliantly the state examination in July, my family took away my 2 lira daily allowance on the pretext that I was mature. So I enrolled at university and I started working for a living. That's how I got into the serious habit of working for a living. And I still haven't got rid of it. At the Milan Trade Fair, Labor Day was celebrated. I have in mind an advertising composition that stood in a mechanics pavilion. A silhouette represented a diesel engine, and another silhouette further on depicted an old worker in overalls, with his left hand resting on the shoulder of a young worker in overalls, and his right hand pointing to a yellow sign hanging from the diesel engine. And the yellow sign read, Rheinak lubrication. This is not a particularly poetic expression, but the picture was so affectionate and serene that it was puzzling. After the Rheinak lubrication, we saw some other things, and there was a crankshaft for a motor ship, then a huge steel monument. We had seen maybe a million things, but right in front of the huge steel thing, the Pasionaria stopped and said, "Buy me one." There was a lot of discussion, and I only managed to silence the Pasionaria by buying her a carburetor for a 125 motorbike. She has a remarkable inclination for mechanics, Margherita pointed out. Maybe we can make a good railway stoker out of her. Sometimes it's better for a son to be a good stoker than a mediocre lawyer. And then one travels, sees, learns. At home, too, the carburetor continued to be a great interest for the Pasionaria, who secluded herself to analyze the mechanism. Before falling asleep in the big bed, she called me, and very discreetly she told me the result of her investigations into the carburetor. His name is Giacomo, and when he grows up, he will be a doctor. He no longer has a mother, and his father is in prison because he stole a kilo of bread and a pound of salami. Margherita was very much impressed by the fact. She laid her head on the pillow and fell asleep. The Pasionaria looked at her with obvious disgust and then shook her head. "She is jealous because you bought Giacomo for me and nothing for her," she whispered. And then, with her finger, she lightly parted Margherita's upper lip. "See," said the Pasionaria to me, "she has a tin tooth, and she's lame too." I thanked her for the useful information and left after sighing over the sad fate of Giacomo the carburetor.
Peppone, scendendo dal treno alla stazione di Milano.
Peppone, getting off the train at the station of Milan, received his first pander from a big man dressed in black, who, if he called him, had to answer to the name of Don Camillo. "It's all right for you to step on my feet in the village," Peppone said, "but for you to come and step on my feet in Milan is too much." "That you are always in my way in the village, that's fine," replied Don Camillo calmly, "but that you come and get in my way even in Milan is too much. They stood side by side in a narrow exit. They found themselves side by side in the tram stop. And they found themselves elbow to elbow on the tram, and then at the ticket office of the fair. Now, Peppone said gloomily when he found himself with Don Camillo inside the enclosure of the fair, now the clerical regime leaves the democratic people free, and everyone goes his own way. Don Camillo looked for one of the leaves, for one of the boards with the plan of the fair, and quickly oriented himself. He had a precise program and marched straight towards the destination. On the other hand, the destination was easy to reach because it was the biggest carnival. And so when he finally reached his goal, he found himself in front of a big color photograph of Stalin. In front of Stalin, there was a bust of Lenin, and in front of Lenin's bust, there was Peppone, who was gaping at the whole thing. Peppone turned towards Don Camillo and said, "Oh, Reverend, have you passed the Iron Curtain?" Don Camillo was about to leave, but Peppone caught him. "Now, Mr. Priest," exclaimed Peppone, "now you're here, and you must see. You must see everything, and then we'll hear what you'll tell those wretches who are waiting for your report in the village." Don Camillo looked at Peppone. "My goodness," he exclaimed. Peppone puffed off the chef. "That's how we communists are," he said, full of pride. And then, "It's still nothing, because outside of here there are 2 other Russian pavilions full of wonderful machines." Don Camillo began to review the shop windows. They started the tour again. It was a long tour because Don Camillo observed everything with extreme attention. They visited the big Fiat building, and Peppone told Don Camillo, "You understand, Fiat is always Fiat." Then he found out that Breda is always Breda, that Pirelli is always Pirelli, and so on. After a stop at the gastronomic department, Peppone said that, "You understand, as far as eating and drinking are concerned, Italy is unbeatable." In the agricultural machines department, Peppone found instead that the main nations of the world can wipe their noses in front of the Italian constructions. In front of a Landini tractor, shining like a jewel, Peppone took off his hat. Don Camillo looked at the tractor with supreme indifference, and Peppone stamped his hat on his head. "You priests, the national pride is under the soles of your shoes," exclaimed Peppone disgustedly. In the exhibition of the mechanics, Peppone started to lose his calm, seeing the evident lack of interest of Don Camillo. So much so that one fine moment he couldn't stand it any longer, and grabbing Don Camillo by the arm, he pushed him in front of a big precision lathe. "Reverend, would you look at it, please?" Don Camillo looked at it. "Nice," he said. Then came the turn of the sports hall. In the midst of all that glittering of motorbikes, scooters, motorized bicycles, and motor vans, Peppone lost his direction. They kept walking until their feet were able to walk. Then they went to sit down under the awning of a kiosk. Peppone had a huge bundle of advertising leaflets. He started to divide them by subject and pack them well. In the nearby table, meanwhile, someone was talking loudly. A French friend of mine saw the fair and was amazed. He said that he had never imagined that in Italy we were so far ahead in terms of technique and organization. Peppone raised his hat and looked at Don Camillo. Foreigners are amazed, while some Italians can only say that it's the nice thing. Forget it, Reverend. Here it's a question of being Italians with tails or Italians without tails. They had a drink, and then they headed for the exit. Passing in front of the big nation's barracks, Don Camillo said, "I would gladly take another look at the Russian section." To hell with you and your Russia," replied Peppone, and he pulled straight ahead.
Una storia
A story that always begins and never ends. A poor scribbler struggles to create characters to use in his stories. And when he finds them, one by one these characters abandon him. I had found 6 characters, Don Camillo and Peppone for the stories, let's say external stories, expert type, Albertino, the Pasionaria, Margherita, and Hamlet the dog for the internal stories like family. Hamlet was the first to leave me, in a trivial way, ending his days under a lorry. The second one was Albertino, in an even more trivial way, becoming, that is, head of a family. Now also the Pasionaria has left my little company, moving from the literary sector to the dairy sector. Maybe you say that the fault is mine, because I should have stopped Albertino and Pasionaria at the right time, but not allowing them to grow old and keeping them at the age of 8 or 10 years. In that way, you would say, Margherita would also have automatically remained young. The truth is, it was not a difficult thing to do, because a writer's characters are just puppets that are always the same and always perform different plays. All right, but it was difficult, if not impossible, to keep the puppeteer young. Therefore, my characters have grown old with me, and all I have left is Don Camillo and Peppone, who, having gone to the cinema, are still trying to be themselves. But they are having a hard time, because the situation has changed a lot since 1946 to the present day.
Un sito
100 Biolka site is a big deal, and the Ghiaie was in fact a farm of 100 and more Biolka, but it was land that, sowing wheat, yielded stones. And so after having passed God knows how many tenants and sharecroppers, the farm had been abandoned. It had been abandoned for at least 10 years, but the people had only just realized it, and so they had occupied it. As soon as Boschini appeared on the road leading to the house, everybody ran towards him threateningly and blocked him. Peppone came forward and said with a gloomy voice, "Get it through your heads. We are here, and we will stay here. If you're not interested in the land, the hungry people are." "All right," replied Boschini, "but here there are 2 cases. I didn't invent a law. Either you clear out my property or you regularize your position by renting it out." The regular contract was drawn up in front of a notary, and Peppone rented the Ghiaie for 5 years. He paid 5 liras of advance rent, all in the name of the Cooperativa Agricola Popolare. In a solemn proclamation, leaving aside the details of the contract, he announced to the world that on the banks of the Italian Volga, the first Colchos of the Republic was born, conquered by the sacrifice and the courage of the people. The Colchos of Ghiaie had become the amusement of all the nearby reactionaries. It was a continuous coming and going of people who wandered around the farm to snoop and malign. But the farm seemed abandoned. Finally, the bomb went off, and the people were summoned to the square to hear communications of outstanding importance. They prepared things very well, and people came from all parts of the municipality and neighboring municipalities, and when the square was as full as an egg, Peppone appeared on the red-decorated tribune. "Comrades," said Peppone, "the moment is solemn. The glorious Soviet nation extends its brotherly hand to us and send its tactile help to the Cooperativa Agricola Popolare. Make way for the advancing civilization," shouted Peppone at the end. And the people made way, and between 2 wings of people, solemnly advanced, preceded by a formidable motorbike relay, the majestic Russian Caterpillar tractor assigned to Peppone's Colchos. "Make way for civilization and peace," shouted Peppone again, and the band started to play Bandiera Rossa.
Era un momento
It was a solemn moment, indeed, and at that very moment the tractor stopped, which was a pity, because there were already boys and girls dressed in red with large bouquets of flowers to throw on the majestic machine. Belletti lent his fortune, and dragged by the warmongering West, the East passed in front of the stage and was greeted and covered with flowers. In the meantime, however, apart from the small incident, the tractor was there and you could hear it because it made a bloody racket, and there was also a powerful plow, which meant that Peppone was right when he said that the 5-year plan was in full operation. Peppone was thirsty for revenge and worked all night around the tractor. Then he worked around it all the next day because he found a lot of little things that were not in place. In the end, he was able to put up a historic communiqué. Cooperativa Agricola Popolare Colcots, Le Ghiaie, announcement number 1. On Saturday morning, with the intervention of all the municipal authorities, the work of clearing the land conquered by the people will begin, with a brief and vibrant ceremony. Lent to the peasants, long live peace, long live work. And Saturday morning came. Le Ghiaie were invaded by a lot of people. Peppone briefly explained the meaning of the event. Then the oldest worker of the Colcots grabbed the crank to start the engine. At the wheel was the youngest Colcosian, and all this had a gently allegorical background. The people shouted with enthusiasm, and the tractor, bursting with joy, moved on. It went on really majestic way for 6 meters, and then it stopped. Peppone intervened, and with only half an hour of fine-tuning, he put the fixed engine, and the tractor started again. After 30 meters, a curious fact happened. The tractor did a sudden turn, broke the tie rods hooking the plow, and continuing its curved turn, passed over the plow, breaking the drawbar in two. One of the tracks on the right side had simply snapped off. The driver had been thrown off, and the tractor was now going round in circles. There were in the ranks of the reaction people that they got drunk with joy, and someone got cramps from laughing so much. Peppone's liver was as swollen as a blimp, and since the damage was quite big, he worked 4 days to get the tractor able to work as a tractor and the plow able to work as a plow. The plowing of the Colcots starting again, almost clandestinely. No one announced it, but everyone knew. And when the tractor moved to continue the plowing, the hedges and bushes around the Ghiaie were full of curious eyes. The expectation was strong, but it wasn't disappointed. Halfway through the furrow, the tractor got stuck, and we could see Peppone jumping and screaming like crazy.
Oramai
Now Peppone was working exclusively for the tractor. But the tillage was not going on, simply because, once set up, the tractor would do 20 meters, and then it would plant itself like a mule. And it was still going on. One evening, Don Camillo was reading in the vicarage when Peppone appeared. "Reverend," said Peppone, "politics has nothing to do here. Here it's about the land to be plowed, the land to be reclaimed, the bread for the hungry people." "So what?" asked Don Camillo calmly. "Then I don't know what kind of damned accident the tractor has in its belly. It won't go. It won't go. As soon as I've finished fixing it on the right, it breaks down on the left. As soon as I've finished fixing it underneath, it goes down at the top. This is a vicarage. It's not a machine shop." Don Camillo explained, smiling. "I've got the motorbike outside," Peppone continued, "and it can be done in a minute. Come and bless the damned tractor, because it must have all the curses of creation in its belly." Don Camillo shook his head. "For a Bolshevik tractor, I wouldn't move even if it were on the point of death," he said. After half an hour, Don Camillo was pedaling on his bicycle towards the colcots. At Le Ghiaie, everything was dark. There was only a little light in the farmyard. Sitting in the middle of a pile of scrap metal, Peppone, with a spanner in his hand, was looking desolately at the tractor, around which he had worked for 8 consecutive hours. "So what?" asked Don Camillo. "I don't understand anything anymore," moaned Peppone, taking his head in his hands. "I've gone over everything. I've checked everything. I've fine-tuned everything. I've tried everything. It doesn't work. It doesn't work." Peppone's desolation was immense, like the melancholy of the bare earth, like the silence of the night. And on the water of the great river ran the spring wind. Don Camillo approached the machine and lifted the aspergillum, whispering the rich words. When he had finished, Peppone got up and turned the crank, and the car started thundering and smoking as if it was chasing the devil out of the exhaust pipe. Peppone got in, got behind the wheel, and put the car in gear. "Go, damn you, and whoever brought you here," muttered Don Camillo, giving a big kick to the tractor. The machine started towards the furrow it had started, and it didn't stop.
E adesso allora è il mio
Okay, so now it's my turn after this very nice introduction to Don Camillo and the miracle of the tractor. Don Camillo is here before you. I would like to thank Egidio for bringing me here to the meeting, which has always been a reference point for my life and also for the dozens and dozens of young people I have always brought with me. It is a bit strange for me to be on this side of the table, but I accepted to tell a few episodes of my life to give voice to the thousands of priests like me who live their vocation by spending themselves totally for the flock without ever appearing, and with the sole mission of making all the people they meet fall in love with Christ. It is as if today's speaker were dear Don Camillo, a priest of the lower classes, as we say, without many frills, and completely dedicated to his mission. In May 1966, when I had just turned 9, at the invitation of a cousin of mine, I appeared for the first time at the door of the church of San Rocco in Castel San Giovanni, my hometown. I had arrived later, the Holy Rosary was almost at the end, and the adoration of the Blessed Sacrament was about to begin. The church was packed, and the people were kneeling in profound silence. There was a strong smell of incense and wax. But what struck me most was the figure of this imposing priest, looking at the monstrance with the bright eyes of a child receiving an unexpected gift. Today, I am certain that my vocation was born at that precise moment, in that place, and with those people. Since that day, the Rosary, the Holy Mass, the adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, and that company have remained the pillars on which, little by little, the desire to give my life to the one who came to meet me and embraced me without me asking anything. In the 13 years of seminary, the priestly vocation was put to the test many times. But what always prevailed was the certainty that if God puts you to the test, then he also gives you the strength to endure it. In 1975, I found myself, by chance, participating in St. Peter's Square in the first meeting of young people called by Paul VI on Palm Sunday. By chance, but not by accident. I was forced to get on the Piacenza youth bus in place of a priest from the seminary who had fallen ill. In the square, in the pouring rain, thousands of young people sang and danced with such enthusiasm that you couldn't help but get involved. At the end of the day, crammed into the nervy hall, I heard Father Giussani's voice for the first time. There was a hoarse voice, unmistakable, unique, full of passion. What he said will remain etched in my memory forever. And he would say, like this: as we mature, we are to ourselves a spectacle, and, God willing, also to others. A spectacle that is of limitation and betrayal, and therefore of humiliation, and at the same time of inexhaustible security in the grace that is given to us and renewed every morning. From here comes that naive boldness that characterizes us, for which every day of our lives is conceived as an offering to God, so that the Church may exist within our bodies and our souls through the materiality of our existence. I felt a flush of worm conversion, because that voice still accompanies me today, and it shakes me in difficult moments. In very difficult moments, it kind of shakes me, which is so necessary for me to move on. I have always considered my life as a priest as a total abandonment to the Father, putting Martha and Mary together, ora et labora, doing every gesture as an offering pleasing to him, always feeling indebted to him for having truly received 100-fold here below, and all this with great joy, helped by the example and words of so many witnesses, from the most humble people to the great saints like Saint John Paul II. For 27 years, an inexhaustible source and model of total affection for Christ, Mary, and the Church. One is a priest by vocation, and one lives this belonging 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, always available day and night. In these 40 years, I have been entrusted with 15 parish communities, each one more beautiful than the other, each one with its own characteristics and traditions, an extraordinary richness, the testimony to a church that is always alive and attractive because of its intense faith, because of the intense faith of its witnesses and the inexhaustible grace of God. Benedict XVI writes, and I quote, "At the beginning of being a Christian, there is no ethical decision or a great idea, but the encounter with an event, with a person who gives life a new horizon, and thus a decisive direction." Love is now no longer just a commandment, but it is the response to the gift of love with which God comes to meet us. In conclusion, I can only but thank the Lord for the life he gave me. He has given me a very intense life full of meaningful encounters. At the heart of it is the gratitude for so much beauty. A parish priest does not forget, but rather he relives in his heart every event, be it a baptism, a wedding, a funeral. Everything leads back to the one who started this wonderful adventure. In recent years, my greatest commitment has been to share priestly communion with my great friend Don Angelo, who for 30 years has been involved in a charitable work. Then the Monsignor Enrico Manfredini Center for Spirituality and Hospitality, which cares for people with physical and mental disabilities. Genuine friendship is recognized at the moment of need, and it becomes a wonderful opportunity for conversion. And then my last thought goes to the young people, to whom I have dedicated my whole life through experiences of great cultural and spiritual value, which have been enriched by many moments of joyful conviviality. May the Lord watch over them in this difficult time of pitfalls. May we adults bear witness that faith moves mountains. In the evening, after dinner, I turned to the Pasionaria. The bag. The Pasionaria looked at me, then turned to Margherita. Daddy wants the hot water bottle. Where is that? And I intervened energically. I didn't ask for the hot water bottle. I want your school bag. The Pasionaria looked very astonished. My bag? She mumbled. And what do you need? I want to see what you do at school. The Pasionaria walked slowly over to the newsagent's corner, muttering, "But if everyone would mind their own business, it would be better." I got my bag. I started leafing through the notebooks. I was particularly interested in the composition notebook, and in this one I found something that worried me very much. Theme: talk about your parents. Describe their life, their character, their work. Development: my parents are good people. My mother is the angel of the hearth and cooks the tasty dishes on Ricky gas that brighten up our meal. But I prefer salami, culatello, and boiled potatoes. My father is the support of the family. He's very industrious because he's always around the house hammering nails into paintings, tightening the screw on the water tap, adjusting the oil burner for the radiators, or supervising the bricklayers or the carpenter. My dad sometimes washes the car and then dries it with a leather cloth. He also puts water in the radiator hole and watches the oil level in the engine. My dad is also able to type in black and red. My parents are nervous but good. They're quite nice, even though they sometimes disturb me. So I read this composition, then turned to the Pasionaria. So, all your father's work consists of hanging pictures, winding up his watch and driving to Milan? And where do I get the money that you and I need to live? The Pasionaria shrugged her shoulders. I don't get involved in other people's affairs. Wise principle, I exclaimed, but a daughter should at least know her father's business. Don't you know that besides preparing the sink tap and the light switch, I write for newspapers and write books? Of course I know that, replied the Pasionaria. But that's not a profession, like a carpenter or a doctor, a mechanic or a lawyer. And what is it then? I cried. Well, it's something like that. Everyone can write things down. But if you're not a doctor, you can't cut off a leg. I was outraged. So your father is just an unskilled wretch? The Pasionaria was not impressed. A craft is when one does something that is needed. When one needs a dress, one calls the tailor. When one needs a medicine, one calls the doctor. When one needs to make a table, one calls the carpenter. Those are crafts. Those are professions. I could not engage in the massive discussion with the Pasionaria that the case demanded, and Margherita intervened to prevent me from doing so. There, sighed Margherita. The facts prove me right once more. How many times have I told you? Finish your exams, Giovannino. Get your degree. Get a job. No one will stop you from continuing to write. But you'll be a good man, not a wretch with no skills. Don't complain if your children tell you today that you don't have a job. Albertino intervened. If Dad wanted to, he said to Margherita, he could take his exams and get his degree now. Too late, replied Margherita. He would have to start all over again. He can't remember anything. Can't you see that he doesn't understand even when you ask me to explain Latin or mathematics? The Pasionaria made her voice heard. If he can't get his diploma, he could always do another job. For example, open a shop. You don't need a diploma to be a shopkeeper. Margherita laughed. To go into commerce with him, a man who has spent his life making all his mistakes, signing the most unfortunate contracts, earning 10, where anyone else would have earned 100. Don't even think about it, because if he were to open a shop, he would go bankrupt in a fortnight. He could be a truck driver, exclaimed the Pasionaria. He has a license and he knows how to drive. Margherita shook her head. And nothing at all. She looked at me. She was sincerely sorry. And then, can't he do anything else? Margherita shook her head. Nothing at all. He can only continue to get by as he has done until now. Continue to live like a bird on a branch, as shattered and unconscious as the first day I met him. The Pasionaria rebelled. It's no use making such a fuss now, she told Margherita. Margherita, why did you marry him if he was as shabby and unconscious as you are? Margherita spread her arms wide, perhaps because it was more unconscious than he was. The Pasionaria was greatly impressed by her mother's revelation. She cut the conversation short and went off to put her bag in order. I saw that, before putting away her composition book, she had written something in it. And then, when everyone else had gone into bed, I was left alone. I took out the book and found that the parental essay had been updated. My father writes for the newspapers, but he's a truck driver. My mom can also drive a lorry, and when my dad has to go on long journeys, my mom drives while her husband rests in the cab. Our truck is a late model Fiat diesel engine. It's very nice, and on the front of the cab is written in large letters, God save us. The Pasionaria had swept away all the impediments and promoted me as a truck driver on authority. And in consideration of my ailments and in order to make my work less burdensome, she had put Margherita at my side as a second driver. I had a job too. I turned off the light and joined the second driver, who was sleeping in the bunk of the cab of our truck. Shortly afterwards, I was driving at full speed along the deserted roads of the dream.
Io vi ringrazio, contrariamente a quello che succede.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to introduce all the guests at the end. Enrico Beruschi, who needs no presentation. He's a director, an actor, and he's a friend of ours. He's been participating to the meeting for several years now. Father Giancarlo Plessi, the director of the spiritual Manfredini Institute of Piacenza. He's our Don Camillo, Father Camillo. Then Giovannino Guareschi, Mr. Gianni Govi, he's a director, actor, the co-founder of the Sissese dialect company, one of the friends of Giovannino Guareschi. Then Master Corrado Medioli, accordion, Master Corrado Medioli. He needs no presentation. He's in the Walk of Fame of the accordion. He's played with the BBC Orchestra in London as well. He has traveled all over the world, bringing the culture of our popular music. And Master Eugenio Martani. Master Eugenio Martani, he's a founder of the Cantoni Museum in Coltaro di Sisa, containing all the testimonies of the first big concert of ball music from the lowlands of the Po Valley. My name is Egidio Bandini. To make ends meet, I write on newspapers, and I am also the president of the group called Amici di Giovannino Guareschi, Friends of Giovannino Guareschi, and I'm also the curator of the 2 exhibitions in the D3 Pavilion. And I would like to invite you all to have a look at the exhibitions. And tonight we have a surprise. Peppone and Don Camillo, directly from Brescello, they have come to keep us company, and I would like to invite them to join us. Mr. Mayor, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you all. Quickly. Don Camillo once told me, we priests never do anything for nothing. So I had to repair the Gertrude, and I told him to come here. I accompanied him, but here we communist mayors also do nothing for nothing. He will have to come with me to Moscow to celebrate the October Revolution, the Russian Revolution. I'm not going with you because you use Ilyushin aircrafts, and they tend to collapse, they tend to crash. So I don't want to come with you. But we drove the sidecar in the center of Reggio Emilia with a presence of 30,000 people. He rode the sidecar up to the center of the field, and then we were about to exit. But when he tried to start the engine, the sidecar wouldn't ignite, wouldn't turn on, and the stadium was protesting. So I blessed the sidecar, and then we started off. But the problem was not that my blessing was missing. The problem was that the gasoline was not running. And so we managed to exit the stadium, and everybody applauded. Thank you very much. Thank you to Peppone and to Don Camillo. Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend. So I would like to thank you all for being here with us this afternoon. I would like to thank our 2 musicians. They are still playing the theme from Don Camillo movies. A household announcement. The meeting is an extraordinary outcome of an extraordinary human collaboration. over the last 42 years, exhibitions, spaces dedicated to children, exhibitions and conferences are offered completely for free to all people following the meeting from all over the world. This is also possible thanks to the donations. Each donation is a simple gesture of responsibility to build this unique place, so that it can continue to exist. We would like to extend the gratuity of many people supporting us. A part of the donations received will help the welcoming house of Kampala, where Rose Buzinge welcomes kids coming from very difficult situations along the various pavilions of the Fair of Rimini. You will find the desks with the red heart, and please feel free to make your donations only to these desks. Meeting cannot be even imagined without gratuity. The gratuity and the work for free of voluntary people and your support is a gift which opens up the world. And to conclude this beautiful afternoon, I would like to ask you to play a classical song of our popular music, and we're going to draw to a close in advance, ahead of the time given. And as this announcement says, I wish you all a good meeting. Thank you very much.
Grazie a tutti.